Welcome to today's session. We are going to be talking about the number one non-financial hurdle to becoming an accounting advisor. Let's jump right into this. So you are a bookkeeper or bookkeeping owner and you want to start offering advisory services to your clients. And that, my friend, is a fantastic idea. It can set your business apart from being a commodity that's just like all the other people who do what you do. It can help you earn more money with fewer clients, and offering advisory services can multiply the impact that you or your team bring to the world. There is a problem, though. For every one person who wants to start offering advisory and does it, there are 10 people who want to start offering advisory services and don't. And one of the main reasons is because becoming an advisor requires knowing more than just compliance skills. You have to know how to go beyond those core skills so that you can overcome very specific mental roadblocks. And getting over these kind of mental roadblocks is something that no one ever teaches you in college or on any licensing exam. If you don't get past these mental roadblocks, you will never even begin advisory work, never mind become successful. And that's why in this session today, I want to dig into two main categories of those roadblocks. That way, you know some of your enemies that you're going to be facing, and then I'll be sharing some tools to help you actually move forward past them so you can begin that advisory journey and find that success for your clients, your business, and yourself. If we're just meeting right now, my name is Jeff Bartsch. I am not an accountant. I'm not a bookkeeper. I am a communication strategist who believes that the world becomes a better place when businesses are built around human connection. When that happens, customers are happy, team members are empowered, and businesses grow. I've been studying and teaching communication my whole life. I started playing piano at the age of 4. I spent the next 20 years of my life being known as Jeff the Piano Guy. I branched out into video production in high school, and after college, that turned into 20 years in Los Angeles, making TV for ABC, NBC, Universal, Disney, Apple, Netflix, and a whole bunch of others. And I began doing paid coaching and consulting work in 2014, and I now focus specifically on the bookkeeping and accounting industry. And that's what I do now. I help accounting and bookkeeping firms to amaze their clients, empower their people, and build profit at the same time. And the number one way that I do that is by helping my clients to elevate their communication. Now, this immediately brings up a problem because bookkeeping and accounting folk in general are very smart people who communicate in one form or another every day. And if you do something all the time, it's easy to think, oh, I'm doing fine, or even I'm already an expert at this. The thing is, most people have no idea that there's a whole other world of impact and human connection available to them. And most people spend their life missing out on what's truly possible for them, and they never reach the levels of success that they could reach otherwise. Now, I first started learning that lesson when I was 4 years old. I was picking out songs by ear, just playing by ear on our family piano. And that's when my mom said, get this kid some lessons. And I started classical training. So I've always played by ear, always played classically as well. Got most of my reps in on Sunday mornings in church, mostly small churches in the Midwest US, where almost anyone who played church music did it in a very average way, literally by playing just the notes on the page. And even as a kid, I was bored out of my skull. I knew there had to be a better way than playing every single hymn, just the notes on the page for 4 or maybe even five verses the same way every single time. It was painful. So I instead decided to play Bach and Mozart for special numbers on Sundays, and everyone heard that and said, oh, Jeff, you're amazing. And I was doing okay. I was playing the notes on the page, and I thought that's all that it needed to be. Until one day, I'll never forget this, there was an older church musician who took me aside and said, you know, Jeff, it's all well and good to play the notes on the page, but when you get older, you need to learn how to play from your soul. Now, I was a very cerebral, very go by the book, go by the numbers kid in elementary school, so maybe 11 or 12 years old. And so when this lady says, I need to play for my soul, I thought that had to be pretty much the most stupid thing I'd ever heard in my life. Because everyone was telling me I was doing fine. So what did this lady know? So I ignored her until years later, I learned more about how music actually works. And that's when people started reacting differently. Instead of just saying, oh, Jeff, you're an amazing pianist, they would say things like, Jeff, that song was the exact song that I needed to hear today. And every once in a while, someone would come up to me and say, Jeff, the way you showed up today brought me into an encounter with God. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. So when I started hearing stuff like that, I realized, number one, this is way bigger than me. I need to figure out what's going on here. And I realized that what I had done was I'd learned how to take the regular message of playing the notes on the page like everyone else and to raise that ordinary message to something extraordinary that affected people in profound ways. I've come to realize that that power is available to all of us. And it's specifically available to you within the bookkeeping and accounting world, within the context of you wanting to become an advisor. In order for that to happen, though, you have to get over some mental roadblocks that have taken out thousands of people before you, and I'll get to those in a second. Now, if you had to pick one or two main issues on your mind that might be standing in the way of you starting down the advisory path, what might those be? Drop those in the chat and let's talk about them. Now, what I'm saying right now is pre-recorded, but let's make sure to chat live so we can all talk with each other and learn from each other. So in my years of coaching and consulting, both inside and outside the accounting world, I found that the number one non-financial obstacle to becoming a client advisor is your own roadblocks. It's your brain. Specifically, mental roadblocks that come in two main categories. Those categories being, I don't know how, and I'm not ready. So if you're things that fall into the category of I don't know how, you might be asking questions like these. What do clients want from an advisor? What levels of service do I deliver? What tools do I use? What do I talk about with the client? How often do I meet with the client? What do I deliver to the client? What do I charge the client? And how do I get more clients? Please, please, please don't make me do sales and marketing for the love of all that's holy. We will be addressing all this and more today. Now, the good news, if you're saying, I don't know how to do that, there will always be someone who's doing it already or is doing it right now. And those questions can be answered because the questions come from outside you. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's highly unlikely that you're going to begin doing something with advisory work that hasn't already been done by someone else, somewhere. So that's a good thing. However, if you're saying, I'm not ready, that's not just a roadblock. That is a deal killer because that's pointing to roadblocks inside your head. If you keep telling yourself, I'm not ready, you'll find a way to make sure that you're right. And you're going to think and get ready to do things, but you won't ever actually do them. So here are the big questions and mental roadblocks that tend to collect in the I'm not ready category. So you know, these questions don't just affect the bookkeeping and accounting advisory world. They affect all advisors and all consultants. And I've had to face every single one of these questions myself. The first one goes under the category of I don't feel like I have permission. And sometimes that comes from the external viewpoint of, am I allowed to do this? Sometimes it comes from the internal idea of, who am I to do this? And that's where you start saying, I feel unworthy, I don't deserve to do this. And that's where the idea of imposter syndrome starts. I'm not worthy to be here, I don't deserve this, that kind of a thing. Then there's, I don't know the whole picture. I just don't, I'm not all that certain of everything. I know the numbers, but I don't know the details of their business and how it runs. And what if they ask a question and I don't know the answer to it? I mean, because aren't they looking to me to be the expert, to know everything? And if I can't answer every question, I'm basically going to be seen as a fraud, right? Then the other thing is I just don't feel as confident as I like. And I'm not feeling certain about this whole thing. It's way outside my comfort zone, way different than what I would do otherwise, which is basically another way of saying this is really uncomfortable or just straight up, I'm scared. If you don't get solid answers for these kind of questions, they will stop you dead in your tracks. And you will never even begin to offer advisory services. Never mind reap the rewards that advisory services can bring. So, what are your thoughts on this so far? Are these pretty much the issues that you face? Are there any other questions on your mind? Drop them in the chat. I won't be able to address them in my comments here, but let's talk about them in the chat. So, time for some solutions. Now, when it comes to dealing with these mental roadblocks, I'm not going to sit here and say that there is one set of answers that fits everyone, because that's just not how it works. But there are some tools and frameworks that anyone can use to put this stuff into use to help you moving forward. The starting point for all this, believe it or not, does not come from the world of accounting. Even all the questions of how do I package and price the advisory services and what should my tech stack be, all of those answers begin in the world of communication. And this is the stuff that I learned in my 20 years of creating content in LA for all these folks, for Disney and Apple and Netflix and all the other folks. And the truth is, one of the things that I learned in my time in Hollywood is that everyone thinks that Hollywood is all about movies and TV. I learned that that's not actually true. Hollywood is actually about elevated, powerful communication. The movies and TV are just vehicles for that. Here's what I mean. Hang with me here. I promise this will make sense in a second, because the starting point for all powerful communication, whether it's coming out of Hollywood or whether it's coming between you and your advisory clients, the starting point comes from the idea of what is a story. Now, here is my definition of what a story is. It comes from some early writings by Donald Miller that I expanded to go like this. A story is where a character wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. That's a big of enough deal that I'm just going to repeat that again. A story is where a character wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. Now, when I say the word story, chances are that the first thing that pops into your mind is the idea of a fable or a fairy tale or an anecdote talking about something that happened in your childhood or over the weekend. That is what I refer to as a boots on the ground tactical story. Being a storyteller in the tactical sense, it's an entire art form all of itself. But when we want to use story to truly set ourselves apart, we need to go bigger than just tactical storytelling. Instead of tactical story, think of things on the bigger picture, what I call the 30,000-foot view of strategic story. When you take that definition of a character who wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result, and you really start digging into it, you find that it becomes a way of understanding any interaction between any human being ever. And if it seems like I'm exaggerating, I promise you I'm not. Here's how. This stuff distills everything down to fundamental drivers that I call narrative forces: identity, desire, conflict, and change. This stuff literally operates at the level of gravity. It's there whether you know it or not, whether you recognize it or not. You can apply it to the life of one person or a company. You can apply it to the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Thinking through the lens of strategic story is just that powerful. Now, understanding the definition of story and the difference between tactical story and strategic story is ground zero. It's ground zero for when I work with any of my clients, and it's ground zero for us right here, because if you want to overcome all these mental obstacles that I just laid out, we have to apply this story definition to you. First step, you take the story definition and you start plugging elements into it, just like a math equation. So you say, who is the character? You are a bookkeeper, bookkeeping owner. What do you want? What is your desire? You want to start offering advisory services. The conflict, the obstacles are problems grouped around I don't know how and I'm not ready. And the change is you want to set yourself apart from other bookkeepers, earn more money from fewer clients, increase your impact in the world. The second step is to examine and change the elements. When you do this, if you change something at the top of the stack right here, if you change something at the very bottom, everything downstream changes. You want to talk about leverage. This right here is leverage. If the story is about a bookkeeper, the desires and obstacles are going to be completely different than if the story is about a nuclear engineer setting up a nuclear power plant, which, by the way, is what my wife's father used to do back in the day. Completely different world. This right here, hey, easy there. This right here is a huge source of leverage, especially with identity. In personal development circles, people talk about the idea of be, do, have. And when you are being the right person for what you want, that means you will do the necessary things you need to have what you want to have. For our discussion here, we're going to be focusing on getting your head right for offering your advisory services via your identity. We can also start fleshing that out in terms of be, do, have. So, the identity of the bookkeeper, that is who you're being. What does a bookkeeper do? They keep accurate financial records based on what has already happened. They operate on current realities, generate statements, maybe run payroll, maybe run some controller functions, etc. And that means that what bookkeepers have is certainty, because everything lines up, all the information is known, and because it's what already happened or what exists right now. Now, compare that to what an advisor does. The advisor talks about what is here right now and uses their existing knowledge to engage with the client about things in the future. This can show up in a whole bunch of different ways where, you might be just discussing a P&L and a balance sheet with your clients, or you might be doing cash flow forecasting, tax planning, business analysis, advice for mergers and acquisitions, succession planning, wealth planning, you name it. But whatever it is, there is always an element of uncertainty. So what we have here is a gap. It's worth repeating. A bookkeeper is a historian dealing with what happened in the past and what is here right now, operating in black and white, 100% certainty. An advisor is not a historian. Advisors are wilderness survival guides, offering guidance to clients in varying shades of gray in the context of inherent uncertainty. Here's the key. This is where your clients are. And it's their job to figure out what to do into the future. And that is a hard question to answer. They're used to that, but man, your clients need an expert. They need a trusted expert like you to help them do that. That's what they want. Neither you nor the client know for certain what's going to happen in the future. And this is why, as a bookkeeper or bookkeeping owner, you have to take on new identities to move from bookkeeper to advisor. In order to do this, Your identity as an advisor has to be a balance of coach and consultant coming from your existing context of bookkeeping. And you're going to have to move back and forth between them. Now, by coach, I mean someone who helps their clients walk their own path. So think of it like a therapist, being present and asking lots of really good questions to help you find the answers that were inside you the whole time. That's the thing with really good therapists. I mean, there's no way that you can just walk into a therapist's office and say, hey, tell me how to change my life. And they say, do this. And you just immediately take ownership. That's not how it works. Instead, they have to lead you on a path where you discover the answers for yourself. So that's one part of your identity as you move toward being an advisor. But then there's the idea of a consultant, someone who has deep expertise, listens to their client and prescribes a solution. It's like going to a heart surgeon, except it's for business. And just like that surgeon, you have to have a foundation of specialized skills that your client doesn't have so that you can provide solutions. The thing is, you have to be both. And the question then becomes, how do you know when to move between the roles? So when you know the answers, you're the consultant. You are the heart surgeon speaking confidently about what you know. This is based on your knowledge of the numbers in your client's business. Now, when you don't know the answers, or when you're talking about the future, that's when you shift back over into coaching mode. You are the therapist asking questions. You're listening intently to the client's answers, and you're working together, offering options for the path forward. And the important thing to know here, because advisory deals with the future, not even the most experienced advisor knows all the answers. So don't feel like you have to address every single answer yourself. You don't have to, because there's no way you can. So that's our starting point for overcoming mental obstacles to becoming an advisor. You start with the story definition. You apply story definition to yourself in light of be, do, have. You expand your identity from bookkeeper to advisor as coach and consultant with a bookkeeper context. And that's the foundation for taking on the mental obstacles. What are your thoughts on this so far? Any objections popping up? Any breakthroughs for you? Drop your comments in the chat. Would love to hear what you think. Now that we have these tools to help out, let's dig into the mental blocks themselves. Now, remember, we have two categories of the mental roadblocks, the I don't know how and I'm not ready yet. So let's go into I don't know how, armed with your identity expanded to be therapist, coach, and heart surgeon consultant. Here are some more elements that you need to take on the I don't know how questions. Now, first of all, you need foundational skills that your client doesn't have. And that is, number one, required to be the expert consultant. And for you, this is your team or your compliance-based bookkeeping skills. This gets you clean numbers from the past and the present and sets you up to look into the future. If you don't have clean numbers, all the forecasting in the world is useless. And if you don't have the confidence in your core skills, no client will trust you to help guide their company. So that's the next thing that you need. You have to know your core skills. When you have that, you need to understand what your client needs and that you can deliver it. Now, understanding the client is a whole world that is beyond our conversation here. But for the moment, you have to know exactly what they want in the first place. And here is the number one thing that they want. They want guidance from someone they trust who can help their business succeed. You also need to know that you can deliver that. If the client is in growth mode and looking for financial guidance to help them with that, and that's how you help them, awesome. If they're looking to sell their company and you have zero experience in M&A, that's going to be a problem. So thing is, no matter how you guide your clients, it's absolutely essential that you have this element as well. Once you have your foundational skills and you know what the client needs and you know that you can deliver it, you need an advisory system to do it. Now, let's talk about that for a second, because it's important and it might not be what you think. Your advisory system is separate from your compliance system and your compliance skills. Compliance deals with the past and the present to give clean numbers to the advisor. It feeds the advisory system to take the present into the unknown future. So just like your bookkeeping services, you're going to need a packaged offer for advisory that tells your clients what they'll get, how it works, and what the price will be. The system needs a method to describe how the business works, what the client's goals are, and a way to gauge your process towards that. It needs to include non-financial KPIs that drive the numbers on the financial reports, because that's how they get to the financial reports, is by the operations of the business. Things happen and those turn into the numbers. Now, a lot of those KPIs are going to be standard across any idea and any industry, things like leads and number of sales and that kind of thing. But you're also going to have industry-specific KPIs. If you are working with an e-commerce client, you're going to be looking at average order value and cart abandonment rate. If you're working with a trucking company, though, it's going to be more about truck utilization rate and miles per gallon. It just depends, depending on the client. And that system can be simple or complex. I mean, for small clients, it can be as simple as a Word document with just a few questions on it that you bring to a meeting with a set of financial statements and you just sit down with the client and talk. It can be that simple. And it can also be an entire range of discussions around cash position and financial forecasting, non-financial KPIs, and discussing the client's pipeline. And there are different entities that have different advisory systems already built out. And finding that and choosing that system is beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. But just know those systems do already exist. And you need one in order to begin to offer advisory services. So, having said that, now we have the tools to start busting out the answers to I don't know how questions from earlier. We're going to go through these quickly because these questions come from outside yourself. They'll depend on your own situation. And you'll see it's not just about answering the questions. It's about giving you the right tools beforehand so that when you ask them, it's not nearly as scary as they seemed before. I don't know how questions. So we start with, what do clients want from an advisor? Well, like we said, they want guidance from someone they trust who can help their business succeed. What levels of service do I deliver? That depends on what the client needs and what you are capable of delivering with your knowledge and your team capacity. All these other questions, what tools, what do I talk about? How often do I meet? What do I deliver? What do I charge? That all depends on your advisory system that you use and the levels of service that you provide. You might have a really simple tech stack, or you might have something super tricked out, depending on what you're delivering. Then, how do I get more clients? Let's talk about this for a second. I've got 3 suggestions, and you might even be good to go with just option number 1. So, in terms of getting more clients, I assume that if you're here, you already have bookkeeping clients, and your single best option from going from 0 to 1 with advisory is to go to your best current bookkeeping clients and invite them to become your first advisory clients. They already like you, they already trust you, and they are going to be more willing to explore how things work without you having to have everything perfect right from the beginning. And it's entirely possible that this is all you need in order to get started. If you're looking for more clients, then there's items 2 and 3. You have your referral sources. However you get your clients in right now, if you have a referral source, tell them that you're offering a new level of service beyond your bookkeeping. And if there are no rules against it, hopefully, depending on the source, tell your referral sources that you'll offer an introduction fee for each new advisory client. If you still want more clients after doing steps 1 and 2, then that's when you start going to, you go public. You tell a group of prospects that this is how you can help them. It's marketing. Some of them approach you and say, I'm interested, which is inbound selling. You have a conversation with them with the sales conversation, or you actively approach people one-on-one and suggest that they work with you, which would be outbound sales. All this stuff are entire worlds on their own, completely separate from this discussion here. And they are not the first thing to do if you're wanting to start in advisory. Stick with option one and then build from there. So as I mentioned, this is just an overview of how to approach the questions for I don't know how. The answers are going to vary based on you, your client, and the advisory system that you have in place. From people who are already offering advisory services or teaching the technical side of advisory. So they all have specific answers that can be found, and maybe even here in the chat. So share your thoughts as we go. If you're saying, though, I'm not ready, this is a bigger issue, because that's pointing to roadblocks inside your head. And if you keep telling yourself, I'm not ready, you are going to be right until you stop saying that. But now we have new tools. We have the strategic story definition that we've applied to you to expand your identity from bookkeeper to coach consultant or therapist heart surgeon, depending on your preference. And these new identities give us a whole new perspective to answer the I'm not ready yet questions. And we got to figure this stuff out, because otherwise you can have all the other answers to the earlier questions and still never get your advisory service running. So let's dig in to the I'm not ready side of things here. It's easy to get stuck on the permission thing. I don't feel like I have permission. And this happens on two levels. It happens on the external and the internal. First, externally, am I allowed to do this? And the answer is yes. There is no governing body in the U.S. That says whether you are or are not allowed to offer business advisory services that help your clients run their privately owned businesses. I mean, good grief, you need a license to be able to cut someone's hair and get paid for it, but you don't need it to do business advisory. Go figure. Exceptions. If you are dealing with any area that does require a license, like with ownership or transference of securities, or doing audits or accounting for public companies, then you need to talk to a licensed professional. Who am I to do this? Is the element of internal permission. I feel unworthy. I don't feel like I deserve to do this. And this is where we start digging into the idea of imposter syndrome, with the feelings of, oh, I'm not worthy to be here. I don't deserve to do this. It's not the full-on, I'm a fraud and everyone is going to know it and I'm going to crawl into a hole and die, that kind of stuff. It's the beginning of that, though. In my time in Los Angeles, I built up my TV career year after year. And so when I started doing coaching and consulting work, it was to people inside the entertainment industry, and they wanted to do what I was already doing. And there was zero question about whether I was qualified to talk about what I was doing, because my credit list was as long as my leg. And I never knew. I'd heard people talk about imposter syndrome, but I never knew what it was because I never experienced it. I didn't have that level of empathy. Some years later, though, I transitioned in my consulting work to people outside the entertainment industry, to just traditional business. And that is when I had this moment of, oh, dang, how on earth am I going to talk to these people? They've got decades of experience that I have no clue about. Who am I to talk about this stuff to them? And all of a sudden, I understood imposter syndrome. And it was freaky. It was scary. Until I started working on the question that I'm offering to you right here. Instead of saying, who am I to do this? Why not ask, why am I worthy to do this? And the number one reason, if you know bookkeeping, you know the nuts and bolts of day-to-day business finance and reporting, and most owners of businesses do not. You have your core skills. Show them a general ledger. Most business owners don't know the first thing to do with it. Show them a P&L and balance sheet. They may know what they are, but most business owners have no idea what to do with them to help their business succeed. And what's worse, they think they should know more about financial reports, but they don't want to risk looking stupid by admitting that they don't. This is why you are worthy to step into advisory, because you have your core skills and knowledge of numbers, and that is a huge thing that business owners need, but hardly ever have. Once you know why you're worthy to be in advisory, then another group of questions tends to pop up. I don't know everything about what's happening, why it's happening, and what's going to happen. As professionals coming into advisory from the world of compliance, where you have to know everything, it totally makes sense if you start feeling a little queasy without the full picture. You want to start feeling weird. Think about operating like this. Legendary Intel CEO Andy Grove said, if you wait until you have more than 50% of the information, you're probably too late. You need to develop a process that allows you to make confident and quick decisions, even with less than ideal data. Now, you can also find quotes from business leaders saying that you need to get to 70% or 80% knowledge. It depends on who you listen to. But the one thing that they all say is that if you wait till you get to 100% knowledge, you're too late. Either you're too late or you can't get to 100%. The fact of the matter is you can't know the full picture. It doesn't work that way in business. Uncertainty in business is not a bug, it's a feature. Business owners are surrounded by elements that they can't control, and this is just part of owning and running a business. Now, this presents a challenge if your core desire is for safety and security, because there are a lot of people in the bookkeeping and accounting world who got there because they love the black and white certainty of the numbers and everything fitting together. And that's fine for compliance work, because compliance talks about the past and the present. Advisory is guiding and predicting into the unknown future where anything could happen. There is no way for you to know the whole picture. So that's when you lean into your therapist, coach identity. You ask questions to your client and you engage with the unknown together. And also, it's not your responsibility to know the whole picture of things. Ultimately, that's the client's job. They're the business owner. They're responsible for the business, not you. Another question. I know numbers. I don't know the details of their business and how it runs. Good news. You don't have to, especially at the beginning. Rely on your coach identity at this point and ask all the questions. You don't have to be SpongeBob, but do be a sponge, soaking up all the details about their industry in general and their business in specific. And as time passes, you will move out of coaching discovery mode and more into consulting, diagnosis, and prescription mode. The other thing is, everyone talks about getting into the weeds. And it's easy to get a little freaked out about saying, well, I don't know all of their weeds. Well, you don't have to. Layer your weeds that you have on top of their weeds. The very reason that they need you is that you have your weeds that they have no clue about. The advisor doesn't have to know all the weeds of the client. The advisor brings their own weeds to help the client with theirs. Also, when you get your advisory system in place, this will help you understand the most important business elements that turn into the numbers that you already know about. If they ask a question and you don't know the answer, are they not going to look at you and say, you're supposed to be the expert who knows everything and you're a fraud now? Well, thing is, like we were talking about with the last question, there is no way that you can know everything. Your value comes from bringing your core knowledge to the table and engaging with the client based on what they want. And if the client has a question based around money and financial issues that they think you should know the answer to and you don't, that is when you channel your inner Schwarzenegger and you say, let me get back to you with an answer on that. This right here, though, might be the biggest obstacle of all, especially when you're starting something new. The idea of, I don't feel confident enough. To take on this one, we got to talk about the difference between confidence and courage and fear. To do that, going to time warp 19 years ago, back to the one and only time that I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane from 2 miles up in the air. Buddy and I decided that, hey, let's go skydiving. So we both went tandem jumping with a professional skydiver. And I added on the extra option for a photographer to jump with us, which is why I have these pictures here, which go me, thinking ahead. So at this point, we were 12,000 feet above the ground, well over 2 miles up. I was attached at both shoulders and both hips with a military-grade harness rated at 2 tons of impact to a professional who didn't want to die any more than I did. I'd gone through all the trainings beforehand, and my brain had all the reasons in the world to know why I was prepared and why everything was going to be fine. But when you're dangling on the edge of an open doorway 2 miles above the ground, your gut says, what on earth are you doing? This, my friend, would be fear. Diving buddy says, we're going to jump on 3. He counts to 1, 2, and wham, he pushes us out before I can freeze up on 3. And there we are. We're free falling from the plane, and it is ridiculous. The fear is gone because I'm just in the middle of experiencing the dive and just having this blast of air in my face. And my partner yells in my ear to remind me how to steer in the air, where to put my arms, all that. He even pulls the ripcord at the right time. I'm just along for the ride. Thing is, he's done well over 1,000 jumps over the years. He knows exactly what to expect and how to share that with his clients, most of whom are like me, jumping for their first and maybe only time. And that is the difference between courage and confidence. So if you are if you're starting out on your advisor journey and you think you're not feeling confident enough, well, frankly, you're probably right, because that's not how confidence works. You have to get through fear in order to do it the first time by exercising courage. After you complete it, after you do it, that's how confidence builds. That's how confidence builds up. Now, there's the idea of faking it till you make it versus what I call meta confidence. Have you ever met one of those people who are just annoyingly confident about absolutely anything that they do, even if you know that they've never done it before? Now, part of the time, they're just lying through their teeth and they're just hiding the fact that they're feeling scared. Those are the people who say, you just got to fake it till you make it. And sometimes that works. Other times people find out that you're faking it and you get in trouble. So that might not always end well. Other times, there's what I call meta-confidence. The people genuinely are confident, even if they haven't done this specific thing before. Their confidence comes from the fact that they have tried lots of new things before, and they know that they can take on the unknown and step into that. And so they know, I've done this before, I've been fine, this is new, I'll be fine here too, just like I've always been before. And whether that describes you or not, it's completely normal to not feel confident when you haven't done something before. Again, the more times you do it, the more confident that you will feel. The last point I want to make on this is that growth is uncomfortable. My son is 8 years old, just still young enough that I can include his picture in things like this and not have him freak out. Earlier this year, he told my wife and I that his legs were hurting, and we took him to the doctor, and the doctor said that our son is probably just experiencing classic growing pains between the joints in his legs. I mean, just being a kid and existing and getting taller is uncomfortable. How much more uncomfortable will we feel when we're stretching our own courage and actions into something new? All those years that I spent coaching within the entertainment industry, I never experienced imposter syndrome because I was in a familiar place. But man, when I started expanding what I was doing into a new place, wham, that imposter syndrome just nailed me. It was only when I pushed myself to grow that I experienced it. And when I started leaning into it, it didn't completely go away. And I don't really know that it ever really should. But it became less and less scary and way more manageable. And that's when I realized, what if imposter syndrome isn't the enemy to be feared and avoided? What if it's a positive sign that you're growing? If that's something that you're facing as you are looking to begin your advisory journey, I hope that's a reframe that will help you move forward. What are you taking away from this session? Drop that in the chat so other people here can see it. Because man, I can tell you, both from working with clients and also from my own personal experience, these ideas have the power to change the future of your business and your life and your impact in the world. These ideas and this session has been about getting you past your mental roadblocks so that you can move forward in your advisory journey. It's one part of my process that I go through with my clients called the Elevated Advisor. This stuff that we talked about, it's kind of right around here under Know Yourself. It helps bookkeepers and accountants move from surface level transactional technicians and become deeply insightful, indispensable collaborators. And when you do that, your clients are happy, you and your team are more engaged and more fulfilled, which means more revenue and more profit. If you have any more questions, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. In fact, since you're here, I would like to offer you the chance for a complimentary one-on-one session with me with zero obligation to be a paying client. It's my gift to you for being part of this community. To answer any further questions or to find out how to set up your complimentary one-on-one session with me, go to the URL on the screen. It's storygreenlight.com/SB Summit. That's storygreenlight.com/SB Summit. And that is our time together today. All the best to you as you move forward in your advisory journey. May it bring huge value to your clients, to your business, and multiply your impact in the world.